All right, here with Carolyn Bick, a journalist with the South Seattle Emerald. How are you today, Carolyn?
I'm all right. How are you doing, Amari?
I'm all right. I mean, when we talk about diligence and staying dogged on the job and on the story, man, your name definitely has to pop up. See, your latest work here in the South Seattle Emerald says no records exist of the review board interviews conducted with deputies involved in Tommy Lee's shooting. Please tell us all about it.
This particular article is actually the second in, what was supposed to be a two-parter, and now it looks like it's going to be an X number of parters. um, so the first article I wrote dealt with some information that I found after I did a lot of digging, a lot of communication with the lawyers and with the family as well. And I was like, maybe I should just try to go on Pacer myself instead of asking for like all these things from the lawyers. And so I did. And Pacer, by the way, is the record system where you can find all these federal court records, basically. And it's all public information. It's been sitting right there. But all this information deals with the shooting death of Tommy Lay. He was, or Deputy Cesar Molina, King County Sheriff's Office Deputy Cesar Molina, shot and killed Lay. He shot him on the very late hours of June 13th, and then Lay died at the hospital at Harborview of the wounds on June 14th, and this was in 2017. Those first documents from the previous article were uh, I think first the most interesting ones anyway were first available in December of 2018. Um, but I guess nobody bothered to look them up. And so that's how that first article was written. And then the second article was written after I read initially the reason I started all of this anyway was because of the OIR group report that came out in early September, and I want to say it was released on September 1st or 2nd of 2020. An OIR group was an independent investigative firm brought in by the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight to do a thorough investigation of how the King County Sheriff's Office um, basically handled its own internal investigation into the shooting death of Tommy Lay. And what was really interesting to me was the stuff essentially that I covered in this particular article. The second one that came out yesterday. And that was mainly that the review board, um, there were no records that we know of uh, made by the review board when they brought in the deputies two of the deputies involved in Lay's shooting about a little more than a year after Lay was shot back in June 2018. Um, and not only that, uh, it's a practice that still continues to this day. And it really was interesting to me to see that part of the voting membership of this review board includes a union representative and a sheriff's legal department advisor. And so I was like, So I decided to email one of the report's authors, Mike Janako, about this, and he's a really approachable guy for having such essentially formidable credentials. Is the best way I can put it. And he was kind enough to just give me a bunch of time a few weeks ago. I think actually the week the first article about this dropped, and just go over with me over the phone all the stuff I wanted to talk about. And what he said was pretty concerning, at least to me. and really interesting. And I wanted to obviously get this all correct, so I emailed him again because I originally wanted to know, who were the voting or who were all the review board members who were present at that particular questioning. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not authorized to name that or to name them. Um, but I would ask interim director Adrian Watt, interim director of Olio, Adrian Watt. And so I did ask her. I also then found another document that the King County Sheriff's Office put out that specifically named the people who were there that day, which was helpful. But it was also interesting to me in my brief email exchange with him, that he didn't. He didn't. He didn't rule out the possibility of legal coaching behind closed doors, which is what I was originally thinking when I talked to him about all of this. After the OIR group report was like, hey, by the way, there is a union rep and there's a legal representative on this board, and these things aren't recorded. So I was like, that sounds like it could be a problem. I'm going to ask the report author about it, who knows way more than I do, because I that could just be something I made up in my head. He he didn't say that there absolutely was, um, and he didn't, but he also didn't say there absolutely wasn't. And he said, "Who knows?" His quote was, "Who knows?" And that's the problem. Um, and so that is kind of, I guess, a long rambly way of telling you kind of what I found in this particular article, the second article anyway, um, when I talked to Mike Janako. And then also, of course, there were the issue of the stray rounds that went into a house. I can't hear you.
Let me jump in
There we
here
go.
real
Yeah, go
quick
for it.
because there in your reporting, it's like every few weeks you're coming out with something else. But, I read an article where a report said initially they said that it was that Lay had a knife, but then it turns out that it was a pen, and now he might not have had anything at all. Initially, they said that he was charging towards an officer, but then, like maybe a coroner's report said that he might have been falling down or on the ground when he got shot. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, so that's mainly from the first article. So basically, to summarize, the documents I found on Pacer. Again, remember that the place where you can get all those federal court documents. There was a really long, in my opinion, jaw dropping, um, uh, thorough, very thorough report written by or analysis, I guess, written by this man named Wilson Hayes, who runs Hayes and Associates, and he and his team reconstructed, and he also has equally formidable credentials as and he and his team reconstructed this whole thing, basically the whole incident. And what they concluded, particularly by after looking at the bullets, or at least pictures of the bullets, um, is that, and also, by the way, pictures of the crime scene, um, and testimonies and everything like that, and the autopsy report, is that Lay might not have even had a pen. So originally, the King County Sheriff's Office said that he the very first press release they put out was like essentially said that he had a knife or some sort of sharp object, that he was aggressing deputies, etc. That he was acting erratically. Um, the press release said that he was shot in the torso, which is something that Molina later said in his written statement that he gave, not his, not which he was only required, by the way, to give 48 hours later, and then he wasn't actually interviewed like like we're doing now until 5 weeks after the incident. Um, And what Hayes concluded essentially was very different. That Lay, um, you know, didn't have a knife, obviously, because later on it came out that oh, he didn't actually have a knife. Um, you know, we think he had a pen, or we're saying he has a pen from the King County Sheriff's Office. Um, Hayes concluded that not only did he probably not even have a pen, based on the fact that uh, the pen photographed at the crime scene by Deputy Adam Easterbrook was 20.7 feet away. And, they essentially reconstructed that. And depending, like, if you, given how hard Deputy Tanner Owen said he kicked the pen away from the kid, you can't get that more than, I think, 8.5 feet. Hayes concluded. But anyway, so he concluded that there probably wasn't even a pen, based on the bullet wounds, and the condition of the bullet themselves. He concluded that Lay was either falling to or already face down on the ground, which means that he was not shot in the torso, which is what he later found to term as a term, the front of the body, not the back. Um, and the autopsy report backs this up too. And that somebody may have, it appears anyway, that somebody tampered with bullet evidence, and that detectives did carry out destructive testing on what was claimed to be, uh, evidence of a sharp scrape mark on a door frame.
Wow. So this is kind of like a story that just keeps unfolding. And I saw that some weeks ago, the sheriff, there was actually a meeting there where the sheriff apologized to Lay's family as more information keeps coming out. What's the current state around this case here? I mean, is this something that's totally closed? Is this something that's still under investigation? What's going on?
Yeah. So this case is really, it's kind of up in the air right now. Like, they previously tried to, I think it was hold, they tried twice to hold a trial, and then I think days before King County, I think, you'll, don't quote me on that. I can't remember I don't know exactly what happened. This is also going to be covered in later articles, but basically, the long and the short of it is the new trial date is in April 2021. So it'll probably be, based on the pretrial hearing.
And who's going to trial? I mean, what exactly
I'm
is
sorry,
going to
yeah.
trial here?
So basically, the Lay family is the plaintiff, and they're being represented by Campeche Arnold, um, and uh, they are taking King County, the the King County Sheriff's Office, I think the King County and their executive, and also the deputy to court over this shooting, um, because they're saying it wasn't justified and the kid was murdered, basically unnecessarily, and that he didn't need to be shot and killed. Um, and so this is going to trial now in April 2021. I don't remember the exact date, but nothing is, in my opinion, even from what I understand, even remotely close to being closed or resolved or anything. Um, and this is now dragged out for years, for this family. And that's basically the long and the short of it, without giving away too much of what I'm going to be writing about.
Right. The last thing in here is I see that King County Council member Germay Zahalai, who's also been an advocate to change the sheriff from being elected to appointed, came out and said that he feels that this is an obstruction of justice.
So that's a quote that comes from the September 2nd meeting, actually, in which Mike Janako, one of the authors of the OIR report that I spoke about earlier, was presenting the OIR report and answering some questions for the council at the meeting of the Law and Justice Committee. So he said that it seemed like a clear obstruction of justice. It seems like it. He didn't say it absolutely was. But I thought that was noteworthy, and I think the lawyers probably do too, because Councilmember Zahalai is also himself a lawyer. Like, he knows what he's talking about, and so it seems to it, according to this one quote, I have not followed up with him to see if he still feels this way. But at that time, at that moment in time, he said it seemed like clear obstruction of justice how King County Sheriff's Office was handling this.
All right, Carolyn Bick, we're going to make sure and check back in with you when your next article drops. Thanks for staying on top of this story.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.